Good morning, church. Good morning, church.
Good morning.
There you go. The scripture today is from Luke 5, verses 1 through 11. Jesus called disciples. One day, Jesus was standing beside Lake Gennesaret when the crowd pressed in around him to hear God's word. Jesus saw two boats sitting by the lake. The fishermen had gone ashore and were washing their nets. Jesus boarded one of the boats, the one that belonged to Simon, then asked him to row out a little distance from the shore. Jesus sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. When he finished speaking to the crowds, he said to Simon, "Row out farther into the deep water and drop your nets for a catch." Jesus replied, Simon replied, "Master, we've worked hard all night and caught nothing, but because you say so, I'll drop the nets." So they dropped the nets, and their catch was so huge that their nets were spilling. They signaled for their partners in the other boat to come and help them. They filled both boats so full that they were about to sink. When Simon Peter saw the catch, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Leave me, Lord, for I am a sinner." Peter and those with him were overwhelmed with amazement because of the number of fish they caught. James and John, Zebedee's sons, were Simon's partners, and they were amazed too. Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you'll be fishing for people." As soon as they brought the boats to the shore, they left everything and followed Jesus. Amen.
Good morning, church. Good morning, church. I like your style. That was good. It is such a pleasure to be here. I've been to this church several times, but never for worship. And to come and experience worship with you is a true joy for me. It's funny. You can walk into a church, and as I walk into a church, what I do is I immediately try to discern the Spirit. Because, you create a spirit. God's Spirit's already here. Even before we think about coming, God's Spirit's already here, right? But we come and contribute to that Spirit. We help create a Spirit together because we show up. Or if we're not here, we're praying for everyone we know that are here. And so I come and I try to feel the Spirit in a place. And it's funny. When my wife and I walked through the door a half an hour before worship started, I could already feel the Spirit. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. And then as I was sitting here with my wife Connie, which is right over here, she's right over here, and wave at him. There we go. And just how seriously you take me in here. By the way, your worship band, oh my goodness. In my position as a member of the cabinet and working for the conference, I have the privilege of going all over this conference, and I have heard a lot of worship bands. Y'all need to know how lucky you are. I'm serious. Y'all need to know how lucky you are. Because it's not just a group of musicians coming together and doing what they could do. You could feel they were totally into the worship experience. And that is what a worship band is all about. So thank you so much. It's just fancy. And then, I hate following children's sermons like that. I mean, we're actually done. You know that, right? Because they created, this sermon for us that is just, okay, yep, that's it. That's it. If you want to know how to be happy, we have the answer. We're done, right? So it is just wonderful. The bishop knows I'm here today. He sends his greetings and wants you to know he's in prayer for all of us as we worship together. And I just want to say what a joy is to be here with Pastor Kim. I've known Kim for quite a few years now. And I don't know if you know this, but Kim is one of my mentors. No, it's true. I developed a practice many decades ago that I pick mentors who are older than me, mentors who are my same age, and mentors who are younger than me. Because people throughout the generations who think differently than I do, experience the world differently, they have something to teach me. And I don't know if I've ever told you, but you're one of my mentors. So I just told you out loud, so it's true. But there's something about that, right? about being willing to learn and to open ourselves up to this incredible truth and knowledge that is surrounding us. And it comes from our children. It comes from the music we sing together. It comes from that beautiful practice of prayer that I just, had the privilege to be a part of. Wow. I can't tell you, I'm so excited. There's so many people I want to come and just kind of stand in the back of the narthex. I said, just watch. If you want to know what worship is about, just come and watch Tracy, because they know what they're doing. So thank you so much. I could just stop right now, because I'm done. Yeah, give yourselves a hand. It's wonderful. But I am going to talk about the scripture. And Kim said I could preach as long as I want. Is that right? Okay, here we go. I actually want to start by, I brought a picture with me, and I realized my sermon title is Fishing in the Deep Waters, and I keep thinking I should bring a picture of people fishing, but I didn't. This picture has a story behind it. Y'all know what that is? Dandelion, right? Some people think that's a flower. It's not, it's a weed, as my mom taught me, especially when I would go out into the yard and pick them and blow them, which was loads of fun, right? But isn't that the most beautiful dandelion you've ever seen? Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's actually one of my favorite pictures in the world because it's taking something ordinary, right? Taking a weed and putting it in the light in such a way that it becomes magical, it becomes sacred. That's a spirit picture for me. I draw upon it. It's on my iPad and my computer, and I talk about it all the time. But there's also another story behind it. I wish I could say I took that picture, but I did not. I'm a bit of an amateur photographer, so I really appreciate that. This picture was actually taken by DeWitt Jones, who is an internationally acclaimed National Geographic photographer. And I had the privilege of doing a workshop with him one time. And because of that, and it was all about his work and his understanding of how you see a vision and craft a vision and look very carefully for, in the ordinary, the amazing things that are there. And what he did was, as a thank you for the work he did, he gave me that picture. So it's really special to me. And it's not huge. It's only about this big, but it's really wonderful. So as a photographer myself, I said, "Oh, DeWitt, you got to tell me how you took that picture." What happened was he has a home in Tahoe and he has a home in Molokai, and they alternate where they're living any particular time, he and his wife. And it was somewhere up in around Tahoe. He and his wife were driving one morning, and there was a whole field of dandelions. And the whole field was lit up like that because just the right way the sun was and things like that. So he told his wife, stop the car. So he gets out and gets all his photography stuff. And he realizes, I've got to take this picture. I see something. I see a vision of beauty, and I've just got to be able to take the picture. How do you think he took that picture? Laid on the ground, right? That's what he tried. Okay, this is before the digital cameras where you could pop out the screen and just kind of bend over. It was just a regular SLR. So he's laying on the ground in the wet grass, getting soaked to the skin, trying to take that picture, and he couldn't get it. He could not get low enough. And the thing was, he could have just tried to stick it down there and take chances, but he wanted to get it just right. He had this this vision in his head, and it was just right. So what do you think he did? He picked it. He reached down, he picked it up, he held it up like that, so he had the vision in his head, and he got the light just right, and he took the picture. So I think that's a wonderful lesson, right? He saw the vision, and he tried to do it the way he's always done it, and it didn't work, right? Sometimes the way we've always done things, they used to work, but they don't anymore. And unfortunately, sometimes when we confront that kind of reality, we give up. He didn't give up. He said, there must be another way. Now notice, he didn't have to go out and buy a new camera, although there's always a good reason to buy a new camera. And he didn't have to go get special help. He didn't use any new technique. He created a new technique by using what he had. He used all the same things he always used. He just looked at it from a different perspective and was willing to think and be creative enough and open enough to what he could learn that was around him to say, I see this vision. What do I need to do differently in order to make it come into reality, right? And to get that picture he saw in his mind. I think that's a really important lesson. And it's a lesson that I think churches all over the world are trying to learn together right now. That's what happened with the disciples. I mean, did you realize what was they were having to learn a new way of doing it? I love this story. How many of y'all fish? This is a fishing story. Y'all realize that? It's a great fishing story. And I just for me, I have fished all my life. I grew up in Florida, and so fishing, good fishing stories are near and dear to my heart. But the story is they were out and they were fishing. They had done what fisher people all over the world sometimes do, and they're on a lake, right? So this is lake fishing we're going to talk about this morning, and fish often bite in the early morning or in the evening, and sometimes you can fish all night long, and fish will bite all night long, because I've done that, okay? And but if you notice, what happens with fishing a lot of times is they didn't catch a thing, which, by the way, is a rule. That's why they call it fishing and not catching, because sometimes you just don't catch a thing. So they had fished all night long. They had fished, through the times when they knew the fish would be biting, and they didn't catch anything. They said, well, that's the way it goes. So they were actually on the beach cleaning their nets. So they were done for the day. And Jesus comes along, and the crowd is surrounding him. He knows that he's feeling called to do a teaching. And he's looking around. He said, well, there's no pulpit. There's no microphone. What am I going to do? He turns to Simon, and he said, hey, can I borrow your boat? And Simon goes, sure. I'm paraphrasing the scripture a little bit now. And they push out from the shore just a little bit, and he uses this boat as a platform to teach the crowds. And they do this wonderful teaching, and it is just fantastic. And then they have a conversation about fishing. And so Jesus turns to Simon, how'd it go? Well, it didn't go great. We didn't catch a thing. And Jesus says, well, here, try this. I want you to push out farther from the shore, and I want you to fish in the deep waters. Now, this isn't always true what I'm about to say, but it's kind of the rule of thumb. If you're lake fishing, what you normally do is you push out from shore and you fish towards the shallows around weeds and structure and things like that, because that's where the fish are holding, looking for bait, right? And so Jesus, by telling Simon to push out farther and fishing in the deep waters, was actually not good fishing common sense. You could do it, but it's probably not going to produce the result you're expecting. And think about it now. This is a fishing story. Who's the expert in this story about fishing? It's Simon. It's not Jesus. Jesus was a carpenter, right? So Simon, the expert, listens to Jesus, who is basically saying to him, I want you to fish in a way in which you've never fished, and I know you're thinking it'll never work, because that's what he was thinking, I think. And Jesus, the novice, is telling the expert to essentially fish the wrong way. But what happened? He and James and John caught so many fish, it exceeded all of their expectations, right? Jesus was saying, I want you to do something that doesn't sound right to you, that is counterintuitive, that goes against your common sense, but I just want you to trust me and give it a try. Because that's the only reason Simon did it, right? Because he tried to give an excuse. Oh, Jesus, we've done it the right way all night long, and we haven't caught a thing. And then he said, but if you are asking me to do it, I'll do it. He did it simply because he trusted the Lord. Just on trust, just on faith. Doesn't make any sense to me at all, but I'm going to do it. And think about it with me. This whole notion of deep waters, right? If someone said to you, oh, you're in deep water, is that a good thing? No. If someone said to you, oh, you're in way over your head, is that a good thing? No. So in some ways, it's not only what goes against common sense or the way we've always done it, it's also a little bit scary, right? Because Jesus is asking Simon and then eventually James and John to come and do something that feels scary, because I don't know what to expect. In fact, I don't really expect much because it's over here on the other side of the boat that all my expectations are set upon, right? But they do it anyway. They move through their fear. Notice the reaction that Simon has. He was afraid. First thing that Jesus says to Simon, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And I love Simon's reaction as they're hauling in the big fish. So many fish, the boat's almost going to sink. He turns to Jesus, and in some translations it says, get away from me. I'm a sinner. Or my favorite one is, get away from me. I cannot handle all this holiness. Right? Sometimes being in the presence of God, it can be so overwhelming and so far beyond our expectations. Even though it's what we want, it still feels scary. And we go, hold on, I just can't deal with it right now. That's what they were feeling. And then Jesus, and this is the part I love the best, he just continues to offer that relationship. Don't be afraid. I'm here with you. We're going to be fishing together for the rest of our lives. True, we're not going to be fishing for fish anymore. But we're going to be fishing for the people who are desperate to feel this kind of relationship that we're sharing right now that will change our lives forever. They pulled their boats up on the shore. They left their nets on the beach. They left everything and followed Jesus. And they spend the rest of their lives living beyond their expectations, simply because they were willing to fish in the deep waters, to move through their fear, to put aside the way they've always done it, to find a new way, and to live fully into that. I love that scripture. I love that fishing story. I believe that as I think about our church that we love, that we are all struggling trying to understand how to do that again. And it's scary. You know, I look at all the statistics, and I hear a lot of talk about, you know, the church is dying and things like that. I understand if we continue to make bad decisions and are not willing to take some risk and not willing to look what the deep waters are for us and be willing to fish into them, that, you know, we may not be the church that we are now. We may be totally different, but I don't believe the Spirit's ever going to go away. I think it's just going to be different and it's going to change. But I think as you and I, as we're part of this tradition in this church that we love, that we can make the decisions to move out in the deep waters and to learn and to understand and to listen carefully to all of the wise ones around us, regardless of their age, and to figure out how it is we are to be fishers for people in this time, in this place, in Tracy, in Mountain House, in Sacramento, in California, in the U.S., in Africa, in Korea, wherever we are. All we have to do is be willing to learn and to take a little risk, knowing that we are going to be fishing with each other and Jesus is going to be in the boat with us. So I spent some time wondering about that, and I'm always trying to think about what do we need to do differently? How do we need to, you know, view the ways we things are, you know, differently? And I realized that I do a lot of talking about what are the core values of the church. And for me, one of the core values of any church is hospitality. Okay. Now, I very purposely use that word. It's because hospitality is more than welcome. It is more than accepting people for who they are. It's certainly more than tolerating people. In fact, a little aside, I've been trying to understand what we're talking about with this notion, this biblical notion of hospitality. And I first got thinking about it because there was one time, many years ago, thank God, and there may have been some truth in it, I don't know. And I overheard someone say they didn't know I was listening. Oh, Greg, he's okay. I've learned how to tolerate him. And I thought about that. I said, well, that's not good. You know, I want to be more than just tolerated, right? And I want to be accepted for who I am and to be, you know, offered in. But I realized as I've thought about this, I can accept someone without, but still limit my relationship with a person, right? And hospitality is getting something about inviting people into my family, you know, being willing to join someone else's family, to create a space where we all can come together in our differences and in the places that we think exactly alike and come around a table and say, we are family, regardless, right? No strings attached. And so I do spend a ton of time talking about the importance of hospitality. And in fact, whole books have been written about hospitality, and we try to put modifiers around like radical hospitality to get people to realize that it's more than just a simple welcome. I realized, I think I probably first learned this in my very first church that I was in Baconton, Georgia. This was a long time ago, 30 some odd years ago. And I was there, I was actually still in seminary. And so I was serving the church part-time on the weekends while I was going to school at Emory University in Georgia. And it was just this kind of wonderful thing. And I realized I'm so thankful to that church because in many ways they taught me how to be a pastor. Seminary taught me how to be a theologian and a Bible scholar. That beautiful little rural farm church in southern Georgia taught me how to be a pastor. It was great. It had 150 members. Average worship attendance about 120. So it was an alive little church. The whole town it was in was only 759. And it was great. Farm community, you know, so here's the town, farms all around us. There's 4 churches in the town, okay? Pretty much everybody went to church somewhere. This was 30 years ago in Georgia. But, you know, this was this incredible community. And here's what they taught me about hospitality. I would be at the church from Friday until through Monday, and then early Tuesday morning I would drive up to Atlanta to go to seminary. I would stay up there. There was this thing that started happening. I love coffee. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to love coffee, but I do. And there were three stores downtown. There was a hardware store, kind of a general store, a diner, and the post office. And on Monday mornings, I realized that if I went and got a cup of coffee and just hung out on the sidewalk, that I would see pretty much every member in my church, because that's what they were already doing. It was a gathering place. In fact, I would see every member of every other church in town as I was standing there, and because people would be coming to go to the store or to the post office, and I realized just a little, kind of community had developed there on the sidewalk, and they let me join. Now, it probably helped that I was the pastor, but they still let me join. And what I discovered is I learned a lot of things about my church standing on the sidewalk from members of other churches. And I'd been doing this, a couple of months, and one of the members, I think it was from the Baptist church in town, said, so I hear the Gorey family's really mad at you. I went, really? Do you know why? And they go, no, we just hear they're really mad at you. So that troubled me a little bit because I'd only been there a couple of months. I said, what in the world have I done in 2 months to get one of the prominent families in my church mad at me? And I go, So I thought about it. I asked a couple more people in my church. No one knew. So I said, okay, so I need to go figure this out. So I gave Ernie, the father, a call. And I said, hey, Ernie, can I come out and visit you this afternoon? And this was a couple of days later. And he said, sure, come on out. So I went out, and we sat on the porch of his home in a rocking chair drinking iced tea. And in Georgia, iced tea is sweet tea, right? You have to ask for it to be unsweetened. And so we're sitting there, we're talking about his family, we're talking about his crops and going on. And I'm sitting there thinking, if he's mad at me, it's a really gentle mad. And so finally, I can't figure it out. So I said, Ernie, I am really sorry, but is it okay if I ask you a question? He said, sure, go ahead. I said, someone has told me that you and your family are mad at me, and I know I probably should know why, but I've racked my brain, and I cannot figure it out. So can you please just help me out? Because I don't want you to be mad at me. I want us to, I thought we had a really great relationship, and I want it to be great. He says, oh, yeah, we were a little mad at you. okay, what do we need to do? Can you tell me why? He goes, well, yeah, you never visit us. And I said, okay, help me out. I said, I've been here a couple of months. This is the third or fourth time that I've been to your house, and we often were sitting here just like this, talking and drinking sweet tea. Am I supposed to visit more? He goes, oh, no, that's not it. I said, what is it? He goes, well, you always call before you come. Well, I said, yeah, I mean, that was the way I was raised. You're supposed to call and say, hey, can I come by? And he goes, no. You're just supposed to show up. And I realized it didn't count as hospitality for Ernie and his family unless I just showed up. It felt too formal. It felt like an appointment if I called and said, may I come over, and things like that. I just needed to show up. And I went, oh. And then he said, and you've never been to our house for a meal. And I said, but you've never invited me. And I went, oh, I'm supposed to show up at mealtime. And here's what I learned. Everybody in my church had that same expectation, and no one had told me. It was great. I stayed there 2 years and gained 30 pounds. Because I was showing up at meal times everywhere. My grocery bill was the smallest it's ever been in my life. But you see, the thing is if I had not been open to learning what counted for hospitality in that community, I would have done it the way I always did it, right? And the thing is, the way I was growing up, if I had just showed up, it would have not counted as hospitality. Because I was taught the way hospitality happened, in that community. And you see, we have to be willing to put aside the way we've always done it, even if it's a good way. And it may work in some cases, in some places, right? We have to ask, what counts as hospitality in Tracy and in Mountain House, in California and in Sacramento? And it's going to be different, even though we're in the same state. It could be even different because we live in such a multicultural, multi-ethnic community, with even different people in our own church. But there's something important about feeling included and connected and part of the family, sitting around the table, understanding that we're welcome. And it's about pure relationship. It's not about ideas or the ways in which we necessarily do things. It's about being offered that relationship and feeling included in the middle of it. It's a powerful, powerful thing. Henry Nouwen, one of the great Roman Catholic theologians from the last century, actually talked about this a lot in his work. And he said, we have to realize that our society in this country has changed dramatically from having a feeling of a neighborhood or a village life where we all kind of took care of each other. And he said, in some ways, we have created a country of nomads, that we don't have a sense of rootedness, and we're always kind of traveling around, whether it's literally or spiritually, right? And so there's a sense that we have to respond to these people who are wandering around us and let them know that they have a safe place to come, a place where there's no strings attached, a place, an oasis of love and hospitality when you can come, even if it's just for a time, and feel safe to work through whatever I need to work through. And it may be the places right here on this beautiful campus in this beautiful church, or it may be out in the community somewhere. It may be in a coffee shop, or it may be in some kind of crazy idea about buying a house in Mountain House and see how you create hospitality there, right? But it's fishing in the deep waters. It's being willing to really think about it in a different way and opening ourselves up to that. Diana Butler Bass took Nouwen's work and talked about it even more specifically. She said, churches need to understand that when we talk about hospitality, we're not talking about forming a welcoming committee. We're not talking about training people how to be greeters. We're not talking about, do we have all of our membership questions lined up so that people will say the things that we expect them to say, and so that we can fit them into our image of what it means to be a Christian. Hospitality, instead, is a core value of who we are as a church. It's a core practice of the church. It doesn't belong to a person or a committee or a commission or a task force. It belongs to all of us. So as people, as we meet people either here or in the community, at school or at work or wherever we are, we're always wondering, how do I welcome these people into our lives together, into the life of Jesus, into the life of God's Spirit that is always with us, in such a way that they'll feel safe and secure, that they can deal with whatever it is they need to deal with right now. It's a beautiful vision, but it's a totally different way of thinking about how we do that kind of greeting and welcoming. Now, I'm not saying the way we used to do it was wrong, because it wasn't, because it used to work, right? The thing is the world has changed. It used to be all across this country and all across the world, people were looking for a church home, right? They were looking for a place to be. That has shifted. Folks now have so many other options, or sometimes bad feelings about what church is, that people are not inclined to walk through the doors of the church by themselves. They're only going to walk through the doors of the church with someone they already love and trust. Or we're going to have to take church out in the community in new and distinct different ways and offer this hospitality. And the only way I know how to do that is together as a people, and not relegating it to a committee or a commission to make it happen. Is it harder? Yes. But I think it will make us happy. I think it's more fun. I think it's more real. I think it's at the heart of who we are as a people. And we get to do it with who we are right now. We don't have to change into something other than who we are right now, because we get to offer hospitality in the way in which I do it, and to learn from other people what that means for them. So it's taking everything we already know and all the skills that we bring to that, and just offering them up in ways that really matter, and being willing to learn and to listen. It's funny when as I get older, and as I think about my life in the church and the work that I've chosen to do as a pastor, I constantly think back at the places where I've learned crucial things. And I've already told you one in my little first church in Berquist, Georgia. But it appears a lot of them, I guess maybe I was lucky, happened really early in my ministry. Those things that just totally turned around the way I think about things. And so as I was thinking about this sermon today, I remembered an experience I had in my second church, but it was my first church out of seminary. I was assigned as an associate pastor to Mulberry Street United Methodist Church, and one of my responsibilities was as the executive director for the homeless ministry we had there, which was interesting because I had a little experience but not a lot, and I'm thinking, wow, I wonder what it is I'm supposed to do. So it was a cool ministry. It had already been in place for, maybe 10 years. And they had a feeding program and a clothes closet and a food pantry and a vocational program. And they were in the process of trying to figure out how do we provide daycare so that people can actually work in the vocational program and find a job and things like that. So they were already doing cool things. And I went there, and so I decided I just need to learn what's going on. So I just started volunteering and just doing the ministry alongside people, and it was great. But the thing that I learned as I was with those folks is that even though people were feeling really good about what was going on, the volunteers who were working the ministry were also kind of feeling tired because they had been doing it so long, and it was still doing it, but feeling just kind of worn out. So we started talking about that together, and because I was new, it was one of the things I was noticing, and so we started talking about it, and we said, well, we need to do something different. But it's funny, when we first started talking about it, we figured, well, we need to change the way we're doing the ministry, or we need to add something or subtract something. So we started thinking about it really logically. Here's the experience that happened that taught us something different. And this actually was taught us by a little boy. His name was Ken. At the time, he was, I'm not good with babies' ages, somewhere between 6 and 9 months old, somewhere in there. And what had happened is his mother had come in to have lunch with us, and then she was going to go to the food pantry to take some food home to the family. So they were not homeless. They were part of the working poor in Macon, Georgia. And the father was working in our vocational program, and we were hooking him up with his first job. So this was a family we all knew. It's funny, I remember Ken's name. I don't remember the mom's name. But Ken's the one who taught me everything. So she had come in, and I happened to be behind the line serving the food that day. And she was doing that thing, that parents do when they're, she got the baby in one arm. She's trying to do the tray and trying to, and that wasn't working. And so, I don't get any credit for this at all, because I wasn't sitting here thinking, gosh, there's something I'm about to learn, and I'm really smart, and I can do some kind of strategic analysis of what's going on in front of me and learn something about my ministry. That wasn't happening. I realized that was going on, and I said, hey, here, let me help you. Can I hold your baby while you get your, and she said, sure. So I now have Ken in my arms. And so we walk over to the table, and I'm kind of enjoying Ken's in my arms. I said, this is kind of cool. Holding a baby is a good thing. And so she sits down, and I give Ken back, and then she tries to do that thing where you eat and hold a baby at the same time. I said, so I sit down next to her. I said, can I have Ken back? And so she gives me Ken back, and so I'm holding it so she can eat in peace. And then she said, do you mind feeding him? I said, no. So she gave me a bottle, and so I'm feeding Ken, and we have this kind of wonderful thing, and I'm feeling good about it. And gosh, I wish I could remember her name, but I don't. I remember Ken. And then she's done, and I give give Ken back reluctantly, and then she leaves. And I go back behind the line, and then she goes into the clothes and food area and then leaves the church. So we're sitting there, and we're finishing up, and I'm talking to a bunch of volunteers, and we're just kind of thinking about the day. And then she comes back in with Ken, and she taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and she said, I just want to thank you for what you did today. I said, thank you very much. We love to be here. We love to be able to provide food and clothes. She goes, no. That's not what I'm thanking you for. I said, what? She said, I want to thank you for treating me like a human being. I went, what? She goes, you don't know how invisible I feel. You don't know. I can't remember the last time someone else held my baby. You treated me just like a person. And I want you to know how meaningful that is to me. Thank you so much. So, I hugged her, and I was crying. And she left. And I don't get any credit for that. It just happened, right? Because she said that to me in a group, what we get credit for is we listened to it. And we realized for ourselves, we were doing good ministry. We had just lost a sense of the heart of the ministry. So we started talking about how do we bring the heart back into what we think God is calling us to do. So we did. We created Bible studies. So we were connecting the story with the story that was happening. And then we realized the Bible story shouldn't be just for us. And for the people who were coming. If you want to join us in a Bible study, you can. And some did. Then we started thinking about, especially for the homeless population, where is their home? And we started talking to some of them. And what we discovered in a ministry that was created because of the heartfulness of it is we after lunch, if people wanted to stay, we would bathe their feet and clip their toenails because their feet are their homes. Right? And then a couple of doctors realized what was going on, and they would use that time to sometimes provide the right kind of medical care for the things like that. And so this community was forming. And then we said, well, maybe we should worship together. So we created a worship service not before lunch, so you had to worship in order to get fed. We did it after lunch. So if someone wanted to just come and just be a part of the worship as we have shared the meal together, we did that. And then more and more volunteers didn't stand just behind the service line. We were out all eating with each other around the table. It transformed all of us. It transformed all of us because we were willing to learn, because we were willing to ask ourselves, is there a different way? Are there deep waters that maybe scare us a little bit, right? Because there was some fear involved. But are there some deep waters that God is calling us to that will fulfill and actually exceed all our expectations? I believe that's what the church is called to today. I believe Jesus is in our boats, standing on our shore, saying, don't be afraid. Throw your net into the deep waters and just wait and see what happens. Amen.